This podcast may contain adult language and themes, or it might not. We're not really sure. We haven't recorded it yet.
I'm Jason.
I'm Diggs.
I make software, music, and podcasts.
I connect people personally and professionally, and I like talking with Jason.
This is the Candy Factory 5x5 podcast.
5 conversations.
5 random topics.
5 minutes each.
When we hear this sound,
we move on to the next topic. Next.
On every episode, we invite a very special guest to join us. That's right, and that very special guest on this episode of 5x5 is Jocelyn Park. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, so happy to be here.
It's great to have you back. For anybody who doesn't know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, let's see. Well, many people in Lancaster might know me as the founder of Lancaster Transplant. We've also talked about that a bunch. But outside of that, I am a fun, creative community builder. I'm also a graphic designer, and I am living out in the woods now. So very excited. Yeah.
Oh.
In Hummelstown. I moved further into central Pennsylvania, very close to Hershey. Every once in a while, I can smell chocolate. It's fantastic. I'm a cat mom, gotten married, have a husband now. Lots of life things. Very exciting.
And in the woods.
That's woodsy.
There are trees.
It's woodsy. There are trees. We have a beautiful view, and we have
great.
neighbors on the other side. So it's like, it's the suburbs, but in the woods. It's pretty nice. Very
Excellent.
blessed.
Well, it's great to have you back on the show. Diggs, my friend, always my pleasure to see you.
You as well.
We are broadcasting from the second floor media studio at the Candy Factory. That's a co-working and social club here in Lancaster, PA. We do all kinds of co-working. You can work with other people in a safe way, and you can connect to this awesome network we have for as little as $10 a month. That's our friend membership that gets you tapped into the virtual network. Then you can actually come into the space to work starting at $3,500 for access anytime we're open, all the way up to private offices. You should check it out at coworkinginlancaster.com. You can find all the details, schedule a tour, come and see us, say hi. We couldn't do this show without the mothership, the Candy Factory, and we're a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective, where we produce all kinds of podcasts and live streams and things of that nature, some of which are being published now on So Good Lancaster. So Good Lancaster. It's a platform where some of our shows are being pushed out. You should check that out as well. It's on Facebook at So Good Lancaster. If you're new to the program, here's how it works. I have an iPad. His name is Frank. He's sitting right over there. And Frank is about to dish up 5 random topics. We are going to talk about each of those topics for 5 minutes. Therefore, 5 by 5. So if you guys feel good, I feel good. Do you feel good? Everybody feel good?
Yeah, I'm game.
Let's get started. This is episode 44 of 5 by 5. That just got weird. Here's topic
That was
number
great.
1.
You
Awesome.
should be jazz hands. That was great.
First topic is the craziest unexpected or surprise trip. Craziest unexpected or surprise trip. So I can actually start with this one. In college, because I have this one completely unexpected surprise trip. In college, I was working at a pizza shop, and I was a delivery guy. And so it was a Sunday evening, and I was doing my shift, and I was in Clarion, where I went to college, Clarion University of Pennsylvania, and my roommate Mike D was home when I got home. I got home at say 10 o'clock Sunday night, and he says to me, "Hey, are you working tomorrow?" And I had Monday and Tuesday off or whatever. And I said, no. And he said, let's go to Ocean City, Maryland. He said, I have some friends who are working down there. Let's get on to Ocean City. And I was like, okay, we'll hit the sack, get up early. He goes, no, let's go now. Oh. And I was like, okay. So it was about 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, and we got in the car and we drove to Ocean City, Maryland, which is about 8 hours, maybe 9 hours from up there, maybe more.
Wow.
Where's Clarion?
Clarion is northwest Pennsylvania, heading toward Erie. It's basically about an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh. And we drove through. So we actually drove through my hometown, which is northern Cambria County. We drove through my hometown because that's how you would normally go there. And then in the middle of the night, like at 2:00 in the morning. And then my brother was working in Fairfax, Virginia at George Mason University. He was working in he was a manager of their like cafeteria, their food service. So we actually swung by for breakfast because I was like, we had all we had like, I don't know, $30 and like this box of pizza that I brought from work. And we were like, we're hungry. Yeah. So we were hungry. So we pulled into Fairfax at like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. And we went into the cafeteria. I mean, we had to look just like, a couple of homeless guys or something. And we walk in and my brother's like, what are you doing here? And we were like, oh, we're going to Ocean City. Can we eat? And so he was like, yeah. So he fed us. And then you got to understand too, my brother's like 2 years, he's like 22. I'm like 20. He's like 22 at the time. And we get to Ocean City and his friends didn't know we were coming. Because we couldn't, there's no texting.
Yeah.
This is like 1991. So we couldn't call them because it was 3:00 in the morning and we didn't have any like long distance cards. So we ended up just showing up at their house. And fortunately, those were the days where you would just crash on the floor.
Wow.
We stayed for a day, 24 hours, and drove home. but the one artifact that I have is I actually had an acoustic guitar. I was busking on the boardwalk, and I actually went out on one of those. What are they called? The rocks that go out into the ocean.
Jetties.
We'll go with jetty. Where I actually went out on one of those jetties and I wrote a song, and I still have recordings of that song or whatever. So every time I hear that song or listen to that song or play it, I think of that moment, and that's it. That's my song. Who's next?
Really cool.
Man, my goodness, this is going to take me a while. I don't know, Diggs, if you have one.
Diggs,
I have one. I mean, it was unexpected in that it came together in like, I don't remember something. I think it was like 8 hours, where I was supposed to. The trip wasn't unexpected. I was scheduled to go to a conference in Florida. What was unexpected was that then all of a sudden we got a snow warning, like pretty like it was like it popped up with like 2 days notice. Like it was they had forecasted it was supposed to go like around us and then the wind shifted, blah blah blah. And I was going to take the train the whole way down and back. So I was concerned, like this was my last job. We plunked a whole lot of money on this conference. I was like, I don't really want to miss this conference because it was too late to get a refund, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easy. I woke up, saw the alert that the snow was shifting. And I called my boss at like 6 in the morning. Was like, if I could figure out how to get down like below the snow, like, can I put this on the card and just take care of it? She was like, yeah, sure. It was like, don't break the bank, but it's worth it for you to get there. So between waking up and I think I got to Enterprise at like, so I woke up at around like it must have been like 5:36. I managed to like do enough laundry because I had started laundry because I was supposed to leave like a day or two later, but I hadn't done enough laundry to do like extra days.
Yeah.
So did quick loads of laundry. Found a rental car, got an Airbnb. The first place I could find that seemed close enough was Asheville, North Carolina, which at the time I didn't know that Asheville was a cool place. It was just like,
it was just on the map.
It was just, it's not going to snow. I see Airbnbs. That works. I got the rental car set up. I was on the road by like 1:30 p.m. and then got to Asheville that night. And it was just like I've never had such a frantic like get everything like. It like at least I was prepared to be on a trip, just not that day.
Right. Well, that trip is over, my friends. It's time to move on to topic number 2.
Oh no!
Which ironically is the Weather Channel.
Ooh, talk about weather all day.
Which Diggs must have watched a lot of in preparation for the crazy and unexpected trip.
I kind of wish I had. I mean, no, the snow did come and it did like it ended up being worth the trip I made. But I actually used to have an unnatural hatred of the Weather Channel.
What's wrong with you? Why?
Wait,
Joss, are you a
because-
fan?
I'm a fan of the Weather Channel. And I mean, it's not like I watch it all the time or anything, but there's nothing wrong. I have no ill will towards it, like Diggs obviously does.
I'm gonna let you two fight this one out.
I don't hate it. No, okay. Let me explain. It's not that I hate it. It's that it was always the thing in like the doctor's office. It's the same reason why I don't really eat soup. It's like it means usually like I don't eat soup because to me soup is like most soups. It's like I'm sick. I'm at home. Like you eat soup.
Yeah.
It like the Weather Channel was like I'm in a hospital. I'm in a doctor's office. Like I can't go anywhere else because we're waiting to get something done or a test or whatever. So it just wasn't something that we watched because I didn't have cable in the house. So
you have this you have this bad like correlation with it or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Connotation,
Okay.
whatever.
That
Is that okay, Jocelyn? Does that
That's
fly?
fine. That's fine. I'll let that fly. Yeah, because I just wish I would go into a doctor's office and watch the Weather Channel. Now they have like these program things about how you're supposed to be healthy. But anyway, the Weather Channel, I forget. I don't know if it's from a movie. You know, I just think of this pop culture thing where people are always making fun of how like the reporters on the Weather Channel always put themselves in harm's way, like when they're trying to get a story. So like when there's a hurricane, or like a blizzard, and you're like, why? I know. And then I just think of the movie Twister, you know, where there are these scientists. None of it's real,
Right,
but you know, they're chasing these storms, and it just I don't know. I mean, I think I have a romantic relationship with the Weather Channel. I like the idea of it. I don't know if I even use it. I hardly ever check the weather anymore, you know.
So Jim Cantori became that guy. I remember when, according to our research department, 1982 was when the Weather Channel launched, and I remember it was early in our cable package at my in the town where I grew up. And this guy, Jim Cantori, was like the early weather guy. And he is now this famous, he's like sort of a punchline if you're talking about the hurricane guy, because he ended up being the one who would go out into the hurricanes. He would always go to Florida, like when the hurricanes come, and they'd be, and he'd be like, "This is Jim Cantori, things are getting really bad here in Florida."
Like we need to see how bad it's getting by somebody putting themselves in harm's way.
Like it's this authentic, right? It's just strange. But now it's like a thing. It's sort of like celebrity chefs, right? Now all these over time, like all these guys sort of wanted to make their mark as the as the Jim Cantori of the Weather Channel. But I remember like we didn't have that many cable channels in these early packages. We had like maybe 13, 15 channels. And it expanded like 20, and we got the Weather Channel. And so I actually have like a correlation at my grandmother's house, like of the Weather Channel being on, and it would just sort of be on. And I remember the smooth jazz would play on Local on the 8s. You guys know what I'm talking about? Local on the 8s.
Oh yeah.
Like, the whole thing about the Weather Channel was like, it was national weather.
Yeah.
But every 8 minutes there would be this little local forecast, right? Brilliant. And they would play like this kind of smooth jazzy music behind the Local on the 8s, and it would just go for, I don't know, like 2 minutes or something like that. And then it would be back to the national broadcast. So that I have this sort of, when I see the Weather Channel, I kind of think of my grandma's house for some reason. That's what pops into my head. And it looks like Jim Cantori actually did pretty well for himself. His net worth is $4.5 million, according to the crack 5x5 research department. Who's throwing some nice facts up on the screen. Yeah, who knew that you could make that much money?
Interesting.
Being a weather guy.
It just makes me think of our local, like in Philly, Glenn Hurricane Schwartz was like the dude,
He was the guy.
NBC 10, he was the guy.
Yeah.
And he had this mustache and these bow ties. And then when he shaved off his mustache, it was a huge controversy. But like he was larger than life,
Did he
on
have
local news.
Really thick glasses.
He may have worn glasses.
Or maybe I'm thinking
point.
about somebody else, but because not that I grew up in Philly.
No, in Pittsburgh, we had a guy named Joe DiNardo that was like sort of the famous, back in the 70s and 80s. He was, in fact, my parents and I still joke about Joe DiNardo. When there's a weather event coming to Lancaster, you
Yeah.
know, and it's that controversial, like, oh, some say it's 2 to 4 inches. Other people say it's like 6 to 8 inches. I say,
Yeah.
Donardo would have told you. And it would have been right. And he didn't even need computer graphics. You know,
Right.
he just had big vinyl stickers that he would stick up there as a snowflake
Oh, those
over
yeah.
Pittsburgh. But anyway, time to turn the channel from topic number 2 to topic number 3
That was a nice
of this
transition.
episode's 5x5, which is moon landing. Moon
Whoa.
landing.
This fascinates me. I love the moon, just full stop. Love the moon. But I wish I was living during that time, because I feel like that would have been an amazing thing to be a part of, like collectively as well as scientifically. And I feel like it's some part of me, like 10-year-old Jocelyn, really wanted to be an astronaut. But I'm very curious why people think that it's a conspiracy theory, which I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but I just don't understand why people think it was staged, or how you guys feel about it.
I'm not on the conspiracy train, but I feel like people just need things to yell about. And so, you know, that's the hill they want to die on. It's just like, it's whatever. The moon's made of cheese and Neil Armstrong's a crank and whatever. I mean, I think it's real. I don't even know. I know it's real. Not I think it's real. Like, let's just
What a clear. Yeah, we don't want to be calling them like QAnon digs here coming out.
No. I mean, especially since we just lived through Perseverance. Was that the new Mars rover that just landed? Yeah. In fact, like we had it on the big screen down in the Great Hall here at the Candy Factory, which I know is not actually called the Great Hall, but it just makes me think of Harry Potter. But thank you.
Is there a sorting hat?
If you're late, then you have to go upstairs. That's pretty much the sorting hat. But like, you know, it's things like that. Like, governments are not spending billions and billions. It has to be trillions at this point. Governments aren't spending trillions of dollars to just conveniently fake out all of mankind or all of the humans on the earth. Like, that's just seriously like.
Jason looks like he has something to say.
So here's my thought on the thing. I believe that these sort of government cover-up conspiracies that you know bubble up, right? Sort of like the 9/11s and these various things that turn into these like sort of amateur investigator conspiracy. I think that what happens is that there's for example, the moon landing, since we're talking about that, here's where I think that the conspiracies form. I believe, too, that we sent rockets up there and landed on the moon or whatever. But what I don't believe, and I have zero evidence to corroborate this, but what I don't believe is that we had some of the technology to capture some of the imagery for some of the PR that to adequately in a way that was so super glossy that it was just super, you know what I mean? Like, I've often make the argument that when I'm driving down the Pennsylvania Turnpike and I lose cell service somewhere between like Exton and Paoli, and I think to myself, how is that guy talking to us from the freaking moon in 1969 and I can't keep a cell signal on the biggest highway in this state, right? So my thinking is that it was such a big deal for the United States to win this race. It was such a big, like, sort of American pride thing that there could have been some maybe, you know, the whole thing about like it was all in Hollywood and they got Stanley Kubrick and this whole like, you know, the effects that were being used in 2001 were being used for some of this. Like, I kind of go, I could see that there would be some folks in the government and in the military or whatever that would want to make sure that what was presented to the public looked really good. And, you know, I don't know quite how to say this in a way that doesn't make me sound like a kook, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
no. It's not, you're not questioning that the landings happened. It's
exactly.
Just it's the images and what we saw.
Right. Could they have taken some of those images and then gone into a
fair.
studio and said, you know, let's reproduce some of this stuff so that we're presenting a more, that's where I think that it's sort of a gray area. Right.
That's fair.
Because it was such an important thing. And I think that that especially at that time, the ability for the normal person to be able to get to information and really uncover it wouldn't have even been thought about. Like today, you're going to be it's going to be a lot riskier, right, to try to pull something like that off with exactly. Like we can see everything anywhere, anytime. But back then, you wouldn't have even known that people would have been able to do that. So who would have ever really known, right?
Yeah,
and so that's just where I land with a lot of these. When these conspiracy theories sort of spin out.
Were you what? What was that? Were you land? Did you actually land?
That was.
Did I land? I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just want you to think I did. But it's same with 9/11. Like, I don't question 9/11. I don't question that this thing happened. But could there have been some ways that information was presented that was maybe skewed a little bit? Or did maybe the government take advantage of it to, push forward other agendas? Possibly. Again, I don't want to, get into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but that's not the conspiracy around 9/11, though.
No, it's not the conspiracy.
But
I'm just saying, like, that's how I think these things sort of propagated, into the ether, if you will.
The collective consciousness.
But my friends, this rocket has landed, and it's time to move on to topic number 4 on episode 44 of 5x5, and that is breakdancing.
Oh,
breakdancing.
I wish I could do it.
Yeah, me too. Gee, Jason, if only there was someone who had a history of doing breakdancing at some point. Oh, wait.
I actually was a breakdancer. I was a breakdancer. Well, okay, let's not overstate this, okay? I didn't get, they didn't put me in commercials, okay? I was just a punk kid from a coal town in Western Pennsylvania with very, very limited access to anything that was happening in the world, right? But found myself probably in a movie theater. I'm going to speculate a little bit around the time that Breakin', the movie, came out. Breakin', which was guys don't know the movie Breakin'?
Nope.
Oh my God, epic
Teach us,
film.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, perhaps we could get some information about that from our research department. Breakin' was a movie that came out in the early '80s, and it was sort of like the introduction, if you will. At least from
you going into it, you
at least from my perspective, it was the introduction of breakdancing, sort of in the public pop culture sphere. I mean, not the. I don't want to get a bunch of hate mail, but so it wasn't like the only introduction, right? But for a kid from Western PA, from a little town, there wasn't a whole lot of access, right? And so anyway, we would go to the movie theater, like in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, or Altoona, Pennsylvania, and Break-In, and would have been a film. Here we go. Also known as Breakdance. As Breakdance in the United Kingdom. Gotcha. So Breakin' was the name of this film. I think it was it 1984?
Because they can't handle apostrophes?
Apparently not. So for those of you listening, we're actually reading some information about this awesome film. So, kids, we would have gone into I'd have been 12, 13 years old. We would have gone and seen this film and been like, oh my God. And so, rap music was new. It wasn't new in, say, New York City, but it was certainly new in the, flyover country of Middle America. And so this movie opened the door to that. And we jumped on the opportunity to kind of learn as much as we could about it. And it was really hard to find stuff, especially from this kind of place. But we ended up getting about, I don't know, maybe a half dozen of us guys in maybe the 7th, 8th grade. And we would go down to the street corner and breakdance with our boombox.
That's cool.
And we probably only had the Breakin' soundtrack on cassette. But I will say there was a Pittsburgh, and I bought a book
on breakdancing.
How to breakdance book. That's right. I had a
for dummies. No, I'm joking.
And the greatest thing about it was that it was a book. So you're trying to learn how to dance from a book. So it would have for the way, you know what I mean? It would have instead of being able to just kind of show you how these moves worked, it would have a picture of a guy like this, and then a picture of the guy like this, and then a picture of the guy like this, And then picture the guy like this, the picture the guy like this.
Well, it was like those flip books where you
Yeah,
have to,
I was going to say, was it a flip book? That would have been very effective.
It was exactly what it looked like, but it was in frames, right? So these pictures of this guy, his arm moving, and so you didn't really know if you were doing it right. You were just sort of like, and then the only reference you had was Breaking, but nobody had on-demand video, so you had to go back to the movies.
But, I just have to point out, thanks to the what do you say, the crack production team, that since you can't, for those of you who are listening, so apparently the IOC has granted breakdancing Olympic status for 2024.
Why not?
I mean, no. No offense to gymnasts that do the twirling and the jumping and rolling and all that, but honestly, I buy it. I love it. I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like this will open up the possibilities. Like, and I'm being very serious about this. Like the for obviously there's probably not as many inner city kids that are doing breakdancing and stuff like that right now, but I can see this being like an entry point to getting more people of color into Olympic sports, which I feel like there's a huge as usually we're like, especially as a Black person, you're like, oh, track and field, oh, basketball, boxing, like that's it.
No, I agree with you 100%, Diggs. And there's a movement of it. Like, my one daughter was a hip hop dancer for many years, and breakdancing is a big part of that. Like they did competitive, and breakdancing is like a whole category of it. And there are people who are in it now. Like there was a good 25, 30 year lull. And then in the last 10 years, it's really on the rise. And I will say, from my experience, there's certain moves, the funky worm, right? On the floor. There's certain things that you can do that are relatively easy. Now, if I tried it, I'd be in physical therapy. But back then, like if you're a kid, you can but there are certain things like the windmill, which is that thing that you'd know it if you saw it. Mm-hmm. It is hard. Like it is absolutely 100% athletic. And I don't know. I think it's great that it's going to be in the Olympics, and I'm glad that people embrace it now.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, it was cool to see. Yeah, as a kid, it was certainly something that we had fun doing for, I don't know, a couple weeks. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was great. But anyway, the song has ended, my friends. It's time for topic number 5, the final topic of this episode's 5x5, which is axe throwing. Yay or nay? Axe throwing.
Yeah.
No.
What?
No. It's a huge fad now. Explain to me. And I know there are places around us. There's one.
You explain why you don't like it.
Because it's a fad. It's like
breakdancing.
Okay, no. Okay. Well. Okay. So axe throwing is like a sport. I mean, it is. I believe you can compete in axe throwing and like those lumberjack trials, which I'm all for, right? Like that's great. Saw wood, it's fun. But like I don't really understand now that you can go to a bar and drink with your friends and throw an axe in a cage. It just seems the mothering instinct in me is like, this is a bad idea. You shouldn't be drinking alcohol and throwing sharp objects. I don't, and I wonder how many people hurt themselves. And I'm also not really into throwing axes. I just think it's silly.
Well, in defense of the International Axe Throwing Association or whatever body would organize this sort of thing,
I'm going to sick them on you.
You don't hear a lot of news about axe throwing accidents, right? So.
It's because it's a conspiracy theory and they bury
I'm out of here. No, you know what? No, post-pandemic, Jocelyn, we are going to go to a place and we're going to throw axes. And actually, I will confess, before I actually did it, I actually thought it was a little silly, but it's actually a lot of fun, especially if you're at a place that does it right. Because I know of at least a place in Philly, which I hope it survives the pandemic, where it's not necessarily that you're going to a bar to axe throw. You go to a place to throw axes that you can also happen to bring a couple beers into as well. So it's less about you being there and like getting drunk and then deciding to do something dangerous. It's like I prefer places like that if I'm going to do it. But it's I do understand that it can appear a little silly, but it's true. Like once you get into it, and Jocelyn, I know, like once you want, like in terms of competitive things, like I love it. Yeah, exactly.
I'm Jason. I don't know if you know this about me. I'm very competitive, especially when I'm competing with digs, like 100%. I would be much more of an archery person, I think, because I wouldn't drink and do archery. Mostly, I would hurt myself if I went up to some of these places because I am also accident prone.
In terms of sharp projectiles, archery would be your gig.
That would be, yeah.
But
yeah.
here's the thing. It is a fad, but who knows? Because according to the breakdancing timeline, in 40 years from now, it could be an Olympic sport.
It might already be an Olympic sport.
It could be.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I will say I don't have any experience with it. So Diggs, you have gone out and axe thrown.
I have done it.
And Jocelyn, you feel like that someone's going to take an eye out. That's kind of where this conversation.
It's probably will be your leg or foot.
Yeah, I think a foot, more like a toe. Like you're going to chop your toe off by accident, or maybe hit yourself in the shin in your swing because you don't let go in time, or hit a friend, or not sure.
According to our research department, no fatalities yet in bars. Well, it would obviously appear like that there could be at some point. I personally saw that this became a thing, didn't understand what they meant, thought I misread it, or misheard it when I first was introduced to this. The axe throwing, like someone was like, "Oh, we're gonna go axe throwing," and I was like, "Oh, they said something that I didn't understand. What was that again?" We're going to go axe throwing, and I'm thinking that I just thought maybe I was having a stroke. I did not know what that meant, and then I learned. I saw some photographs on the internet that
the step-by-step flip.
Yeah, like that showed how axe throwing worked, and I was like, "Oh my god, people are doing like this is a new thing. This is the hot new thing." And I thought to myself, "Would I do it?" And the answer was no.
No.
There is a league. I think that there's a meadery. For those who aren't in Lancaster, there's a meadery across from a very popular beer bar that's both have been open for most of the post full shutdown period. But I'm pretty sure that that their little axe throwing community is they're the only people allowed in on, I think it's Tuesday nights.
Okay, so it's
they have a league. Yeah.
So this was like my grandfather's bowling league when he would get down.
And people show up with their own axes.
I'm sure people are really, really, really into it. And I sounded very judgmental. I'm judgmental about all fads, unfortunately, for me. I'm like, I'll wait until it passes.
Now, is there a point where the fad turns into something that you would accept? Like, is there like a timeline? Is there an action that happens?
I think no. Well, that's a very interesting question. I think I do accept that people enjoy doing this and it's a thing and it's a fad. I think once it dies down and there's, from being a fad where everyone's doing it and there are people who really dedicated to it, that's when I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can see the axe. And there already are those people. It's just for some reason it's come up in the culture. I think when you can do any activity in a bar and drinking, I'm automatically like, this is just a fad. It's not here to stay. That's my general feeling about it. But everyone can enjoy it if they want to. Well,
unfortunately, the last axe has been thrown on this episode of 5x5. The last axe has just hit whatever the axes go into when you throw them. I don't know. Is it wood or something? Is it it's
usually wood.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. Boom. Fastest 25 minutes in podcasting.
Zing.
Absolutely. Jocelyn, what a pleasure to have you back on the program.
Yeah, it was nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for reaching out. I had a good time.
Likewise. Great one for 44. We brought 44 home, didn't we? We landed 44, huh? I'm back with that. Diggs, my friend, always a pleasure to see you.
You too.
Big thanks to the Candy Factory, the mothership, without which we could not do this show. And for all of you listening and watching us right now, thanks for tuning in. And we will see you next time on 5x5. The Candy Factory 5x5 podcast
is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. 5x5 video can be found on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Subscribe to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts.
The Candy Factory 5x5 podcast is recorded at the studios of the Candy Factory. a co-working campus in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
The show is produced and hosted by Jason Mundock,
along with co-host Robert Diggs.
Editing and additional production by Anna Tran.
The opinions and views expressed on this podcast
Are solely those of the expressor.
The Candy Factory is not in any way responsible if anyone said something stupid.
Our theme music was composed
and recorded by a really cool guy.
Really cool guy.
A really cool guy.
Really cool guy named John Chin.
Relevant links and show notes
Can be found on the show post.
At our website, candyfactorycollective.com.
Maybe that's it.
Is that it? Okay.
Candy Factory.
Collective.